Hey, everybody. Hi. Welcome to Singing Tips. It's me, Benita Charles, New York vocalist, here for another episode of Singing Tips. And this is a special show because this is the recap show. So you're listening to Never Let Me Go from the Moments in Love CD. Turn it down a little bit. So anyway, I'm here. I see I have one person join, but I don't know who it is. But whoever you are, thanks so much for joining. It is New York vocalist Benita Charles for another episode of Singing Tips. This is the recap show. And if you're wondering what is the recap show is the show where I break down all of the tips from this series, which is singing in front of an audience. So if you've been following me, you know we've been talking about all these tips about singing in front of an audience. So thank you so much for joining me. This is the recap show. So for those of you who don't know what this is a singing tip show for beginner singers. Hi, Tim. Thanks for joining. Good to see you. I'm going to turn this off now. This is Never Let Me Go from my Moments in Love CD. But we're going to get into the show. Oh, hi, Jamila. How are you? I'm so glad you joined me today. This is Singing Tips. Oh, hello, Cordelia. Hello. Thanks so much for joining me today. And this is a show for beginners. I'm good. How are you, darling? Thanks so much, beautiful sister, for joining today, my wow sister. And I just want to thank all of my friends for joining me today. This is a show for beginner singers, but as you know, if you've been following me, I also like to give inspiration for everyone who has a dream. So my dream and goals are singing, but your dream could be anything. But, so I also like to give encouraging words for everyone. If you're following me, you know that every week I give singing tips for beginner singers. But if you're not a singer and you still like to watch, maybe every week you can do one thing towards what you're trying to do. So, it's for singers, but everyone can get something out of it. So just to give you, thanks so much for saying it's a nice show. Just to give you a little bit of background about the show, I was inspired to do this show because I had a lot of beginner singers come to me about singing. They didn't know anything. They just didn't know where to start. So it made me think, a way that I can reach more people is to create a show. So that's how Singing Tips started. And the way it's designed was inspired by the movie Get On Up. Now, if you don't know anything about this movie, it came out in 2014, so it's some time ago, but it's the story of James Brown. And the movie is phenomenal. I mean, the person who played James Brown should have gotten an Oscar. I felt like I was watching James Brown when I was watching this movie, so if you haven't seen it, you have to see it. But in the movie, James Brown was talking about thanks so much. Oh, hi, Carol. How are you? Oh, Miss Garcia. Oh, my goodness. All my great friends are here. I'm so excited. So I was talking about the movie Get On Up because it has inspired me to design this show a certain way. So it stars Chadwick Boseman. I want to get his name right. Viola Davis, Jill Scott, Dan Aykroyd, Octavia Spencer. So it had an all-star cast. So there's this one particular scene that had really inspired me. So in this scene, James's manager said to him, "This is show business. You take care of the show. I take care of the business." And James said, no. I'm going to do both. And he did. He was considered the greatest entertainer in show business, and he was. But it made me think, he has a point. There's a show part and there's a business part. And the funny thing is, I've always just thought about the show part. I've had training. Oh, thank you. I love you too. I had training. I love the show. I live for the show. I'll get into it a little bit later, but being on stage is heavenly for me. But I never thought about the business part. I actually was afraid of the business part. I didn't want to deal with it. It's too complicated. It's too impersonal. It's too cold. So I never really focused on the business part. I always focused on the show part. So I have that down pat. But the business part, not so good. Well, needless to say, the money is in the business part of show business. So if you don't know the business part, it's basically a hobby. You're not going to make any money. So that's why I designed this show. There's a show part and there's a business part. Right now we're in the show part, but eventually we will move to the business part because you really need to have a good business sense if you want to make it in show business. So that being said, we've discussed the foundation, which is your talent. You can't do anything if you don't have your talent together. Nobody's going to hire you if you can't sing. So the first 10 tips, we talked about your talent. We talked about your voice. We talked about, learning songs, and we talked about your foundation. And I encouraged you to get a voice teacher because I am not a voice teacher, and I'm not going to get on here and say I am. So that was the first 10 tips was your talent. Now, the next 10 tips was performing in front of a live audience. And that's what we've talked about all these weeks. We ended last week with tip number 20, part 2 of tip number 20. And all of the tips from up until now has been about performing in front of a live audience. So this is called the recap show because we're going to go through all 10 tips of this section and just do a review of what we talked about. So the first tip of this series was tip number 11, and that was sing in front of an audience. So from 1 through 10, you were developing your talent. And now it's time for you to sing in front of an audience because by this point, you're ready. So some of the key points to this tip was performing in front of an audience takes you to another level. You can practice all you want, but if you never sing in front of anyone, you're never going to grow. So that's what this tip was all about. It was all about encouraging you to take that step forward. And then we talked about where to perform. So I said the first thing you should do is you start with who you know. You start with your family and friends because that's a friendly audience and they're going to be honest with you. And if you make a mistake, so what? These are people who love you. But when you're starting out, you need to start somewhere. And that's the best place to start is right at home, right with your family and friends. Then we talked about singing at an open mic because at open mics, it's pretty much set up for you. They usually have a band and you go up and you sing your one song. And this is cool because you get to sing in front of a band and you get to sing in front of an audience. So you get both, a double whammy. It's a great experience. I also have church because that's where I started out. Oh, thank you, Tony, for saying that. You like the idea. But yeah, I started out in church. In church, I would encourage, if you have children, it is the best training because I sang in a choir, so you get to sing with other singers and you hear other voices and you learn harmony. That I have such a great ear, and I know it's because of church. I usually can listen to someone and find a harmony, and I know it's all that training that I had as singing in church. And then I did solos, so I got used to singing by myself. So it was really a great experience. So I would encourage that. Also have talent shows. When I was younger, I participated in talent shows, and I think talent shows are really great because you have that competitive spirit or edge, and it teaches you how to prepare yourself so that you can compete with other people. So I think talent shows is excellent way if you're just starting out. And then I have artist showcases. So an artist showcase is a little different from an open mic, because usually with an artist showcase, there's a producer. They get a bunch of artists together. They get a venue. They promote it, and then all you have to do is basically sing. It's not like a talent show where you're competing against someone else, but it's a showcase. So you get to shine. You get to show who you are. And you don't have to worry about anything because they've taken care of everything. All you have to do is show up and be prepared and shine. And then the last thing I have, no, it's not actually not the last thing, but then I have self-produced shows. So this is something that you can do yourself, as opposed to an artist showcase where someone else produces it. A self-produced show, you produce it yourself. So, but you have to do all of the legwork. You got to get the venue, you got to promote it, you have to, but it's worth it. Oh, hi, Minister Angela has joined. Hello there. We're doing a recap show, and this is all of the tips that we talked about in terms of live performances, singing in front of an audience. So we're talking about tip number 11. We talked about singing in front of an audience. And then I have what I'm doing right now, live streaming. This is an excellent way, and you can reach people from all over the world doing live streaming. I mean, I have been in touch with people from England, Germany, and all over the United States. So live streaming has taken everything to another level, and it goes global. You can reach people worldwide. So if you're confident and putting yourself out there, then hey, go for it. Do live streaming. And I'm on Facebook, so you can do it right on Facebook. But yeah, that was tip number 11. That was encouraging everyone to sing in front of an audience. So tip number 12 is project your voice when you sing. So with that tip, we just talked about, standing up straight, breathing correctly, and exuding confidence, and sing loudly, sing out loud. Now if you're prepared and you've practiced, you don't have to worry about how you're going to sound or if you're going to mess up. You're not going to mess up because you're prepared. So that was what that tip was all about. So tip number 13 was how to handle technical difficulties and interruptions. So this tip was mainly I've had instances where I'm on stage and the equipment goes out, or something goes wrong. So, and I've seen some artists just become terrors. They just get so upset and curse, and I don't think that I don't feel like you need to handle it that way. I think, sometimes things happen, and I mean, that's life. Sometimes things happen in life, and it's not what happens, it's how you handle it. And I believe in being as professional as possible, and it has never, what am I trying to say? What I'm trying to say is it's never gone wrong for me. It actually has made it better. People have told me afterwards that hey, thank you for being calm, and thank you for the way you handled it. And so the tips that I have for this tip is remain calm, breathe. It's going to be all right. Act professional, and think of creative ways to handle the situation. I remember there was one show I did, and it was Sexy Punchinella. So I did this single years ago, and during the middle of the song, everything just went out. So instead of me, ranting and raving, I, took a breath, took a step back, and then I started talking to the audience, and then next thing you know, everything went back on, and I went right back to it, and it was great. And everyone said that the person told me afterwards that I calmed them down, calmed the audience down, and I made everything okay. And so that's what I'm saying, Also want to mention, I didn't mention this during this tip, but there's one thing I would like to mention in terms of difficulties. Sometimes you might go blank, like you can't remember the song. And I mean, that's happened to me so many times. And usually what I do is sometimes I have to make up the words, but it works. But the thing is, I didn't register it. I didn't just go, because when you do that, people they'll really know there's a problem, because sometimes people won't know, and especially if they don't know the song, they don't know. So the best thing to do if you just can't remember is just try to think of something that can fit with what you're trying to do. And I mean, that's always worked for me. But also too, with that, I had mentioned this in terms of equipment every singer should have. I think if you have like an iPad, you can have your lyrics on your iPad and just clip it to the mic stand, and that's another way in terms of lyrics, because that way you can kind of peek and and you'll be okay. So that's how to handle technical difficulties. So tip number 14, we talked about singing with live musicians versus singing with tracks. So if you remember in this tip, singing with a live band is really great, because usually the band follows you. So you set the tone, and also you can do the song however you want. As opposed to singing with a track, it's usually pretty much set in stone. It is the way it is. You rehearse to that track the way it is, so you'll know when to come in. But it doesn't change. Like if you want to change the arrangement, you can't. Now, when you're with a live band, you can do a breakdown. You can tell the band, okay, please stop. I want to say something. Or you could take the song to another key. So there's so much you can do with a live band. But each has its place. So I have for singing with a live band allows for greater flexibility with the song arrangements. It helps you to create your own performance style and helps you become a leader as a great performer. Now, singing with tracks, it's good for smaller gigs when you don't really want to pay a lot of musicians. You have your tracks, and also I have practice with the tracks so that because the reason why I said that is I remember there was one show years ago. I didn't practice with the track, but it was something I had been singing for years, so I didn't feel like I needed it. And I went up in the middle. That goes that point again. I went up in the middle of the song, and I could not remember. I was like, "What comes next?" I made it through, but that was another lesson for me. Always, even if it's something you should go over it once. And then I have ensure the track is in good working condition before the show. I had a show where that happened. I was using a DAT tape. So I'm dating myself, but years ago we used to have DAT tapes because it was a lot more it had a better quality sound. You did that in the studio, and the tape went out. And another one of those situations where I made it work, but it happened. So I have that for that point. Just make sure it's in good shape. So in terms of live musician versus track, just figure out what's best for you. I mean, it might be more cost effective. If it's a short performance, you might want to just use tracks. So, but I would say I'm partial to live musicians. It just sounds more professional, and you can do so much more with a live musicians. So, tip number 15 was engage your audience. Now, this is very, very touching for me, because the best part of being a performer is the communication you have with your audience. Now, whether you're talking to your audience or when you're singing, and it's nothing like the feeling of that connection when you are in the zone. I call it when you're in that space and you're giving love and they're giving love back. And it's just a wonderful, wonderful thing. So the points that I had for this tip was be confident in your performance. I'm sorry, this little thing. Oh, I got thank you. Got a thumbs up for that. So be confident in your performance. So you've rehearsed, you're prepared, and you have that confidence. And then I have keep your backstory to yourself. Now, what do I mean by that? What I mean is do not share your drama with the audience unless it's a song that calls for it. But What I mean is the extra drama. Something that happened backstage that has nothing to do with the performance that the audience don't need to know. I personally don't think you need to share. Now, why am I saying this? I'll give you an example. And I don't know if I should mention this artist's name. Well, she doesn't know me. Well, she's a major artist, but I don't know if you guys know Mickey Howard. I love Mickey Howard. I think she has an awesome voice. She was really big in the 90s, 80s. So anyway, she was fighting with her record label, and it's a known fact. So it's not like I'm sharing something that wasn't unknown, but she at one point was really unhappy. And a friend of mine went to one of her performances, and they said she was going on and on about her record label and how, kind of how she wasn't happy before her performance. It kind of put a damper on her performance. And honestly, I don't think that, I can understand she might have been upset, but that's not something for the audience. That's something that she should take up with her record label, with her attorney. But don't bring that negativity to your performance. People don't want to hear that. They come because you have a beautiful voice. They want to hear that music. They don't want to hear that negativity. If you saw Unsung, there was a story about her, her life, and she had different things she was going through, and that was one of the things they did talk about. But she has such a wonderful, wonderful talent. I wish her well. I love her. I still love her. But it just kind of made me feel like just keep the backstory to yourself. Especially if it's not something that's going to add to your performance, keep it to yourself. So, and then I have always put your heart and soul in every performance. So every performance, whether it's one person, 5 people, 10, 20, 100, 10,000, always do your best. Because even if it's 3 people in the room, you touch 3 people's lives. Those 3 people are going to go back and tell everybody. So, I just always, that's just my rule too, is always do your best. So that was tip number 15, engage your audience. Oh, one other point I want to make to that one was I have asked your audience to participate. So, when you're doing a performance, tell your audience, raise your hand. Oh, I'm in a, oops. Raise your hand or stand up and, or whatever. And audience love that. They love being a part of it. And it helps connect you to your audience. So that's engage your audience. So tip number 16 was how to stay motivated when the going gets tough. Now, for this tip, I was encouraged to write it because one of the singers that inspired me to do this whole series decided that she didn't want to sing anymore. And that really hurt my heart because this was why I was doing it. And it prompted me to do this tip was how to stay motivated when the going gets tough. Now, one of the points to this is remember your why. And I was encouraged to think of this point by our WOW leader, Women of Worth, Janine Cummings. If you're not familiar with Women of Worth, it's a wonderful organization of over 2,000 women in this group of encouraging each other and motivating each other. And Janine is such an inspiring person. And when she said this, I thought, yes, you have to remember why you're doing this. Now, if you're doing this just for fame and fortune, then you will get discouraged because it is not one of those things that you're going to get money right away. But if you have a greater purpose and you want to touch the world with your music, then you have to remember that when you feel like, why am I, and I have these feelings too, why am I doing this? Well, it's not for me. It is for me in a sense because it's something I love, but it's greater than me because what I'm doing can touch a life, can change a life. Music is an inspiring thing. So you have to remember that. And then I have take a break because sometimes you can be so close to something, so inundated with something. It's, with the grind and the hardship. Sometimes you got to step away from it and just say, okay, you know what? I need a break. So, and also have, get creative with your approach. If one way don't work, try something else. It's not written in stone. You don't have to do it the same way. So tip number 17, equipment every artist should know or should have. So the number one thing every artist should have, I'm sorry, I'm going to get a little water, is what? A microphone. Every artist should have a microphone. Now, why do I say that? Because there may be a gig that you may have that you will be called upon, and they may not have equipment. They hired you, but it's up to you to find out. But I mean, you should have your own mic anyway. That's just a staple. Now, I won't go through everything because we had a tip for that. So if you want to know all of everything, you have to go back to the replays. Everything is archived on YouTube, so I don't want to take too much time. But I just want to stress that's the number one thing you should have as an artist. You should have a microphone. So we go into all the other things you should have, like a PA system, cameras, that kind of thing. But the number one thing is the microphone. So tip number 18 was performing with a live band. So we went more in depth with that because we touched on it a little bit when we talked about a live band versus performance track. But now it's more so when you're actually working with that band. So I talked about how you select your songs to rehearse, finding musicians, and usually you find them. Oh, I'm sorry. Before I say that, what I meant by the first point was, make sure you're prepared before you get with that band. Make sure you know your music. And that's not something that you do when you get with the band. That's something that you do before you get with the band. So, now once you're prepared and you want to get the band together, you have to find musicians. So I say the number one way to find musicians is through referrals. So that's what we talked about with that. And we'll go... rehearse with the band. And also, sometimes you don't have a whole lot of time to rehearse with the band. So take what you can get. Sometimes it's one time, a couple of times, but sometimes not at all. So try to be as prepared as possible and have a good show, I have always look your best. Sound your best because you're going to be prepared. Engage with the audience and sell your product if you have products. So that was tip number 17. Equipment every artist should have. Number 18. I'm sorry. We were talking about performing with a live band. Sorry about that. Oh, hi. Thanks for the hearts. You like that? Oh, thank you. Wow. So we talked about equipment every artist should have. 17. 18. Performing with a live band. Number 19. We talked about always have a set list. Now, a set list allows everyone to know exactly what's going on. So when you're with that band, you want to make sure you have a set list for your band and for yourself so that everybody knows exactly what comes next. And it just makes for a smoother show. And then that was the point that I had. A set list helps with the flow of the show. Oh, I got a thumbs up. See, I got a thumbs up on that. So everyone knows. And then I talked about the order of the show. Oh, you like that one? Oh, yes. Everyone, it makes for such a smooth show. Like if everybody knows what's going on, you've rehearsed. Even though you've rehearsed, it still helps for them to have that list of what goes where. And I have when select. Oh, so even though you have a set list, it's not written in stone because when you get to the show and you feel the audience, it may take another turn. So I'm not saying have a set list and that's the way you do it. It's set in stone. No, I'm saying have a set list, but make it flexible just in case you need to change. Because if you're, working with the performance and everybody's is high energy and everybody's having fun, but your set list say you got to do a ballad, but yet the audience is having fun. You don't want to change that. You want to keep it going with the flow. So you may have to switch something out. But just having that set list is the foundation. So, but I'm not saying that you have to, do exactly as the set list. Go with the flow. See how the show goes. But it just helps everyone know what's going on. Number 20. Wow, we're counting it down. Number 20 was song choice. So, with song choice, I have a part 1 and a part 2. So, you choose your songs wisely. So, with song choice, you might want to do artists that you like, also songs that you like, because it really helps to do stuff you like. I mean, it's just it makes it easier for you. Also, I have, you want to throw in some popular stuff that's happening today. I noticed the audience really reacts to stuff they hear now, and they're like, oh, and they're familiar with it. So that makes a, interesting show. Let's see what else I have. I have, it's good to do standards in your genre of music. So whatever type of music that you do, it's good to do music, popular music within that type of music. So, and then I had a part 2 because I wanted to talk about original music, because it's always good to have your original music mixed in with the covers, because the original music introduces your music to the world. And, when you get ready to sell your CD, people are familiar with your music. So that's another great thing. And also it adds variety to the show, because you're not a cover band. You're mixing your original music as well. So all of these tips were performing in front of an audience. So I hope that you found those tips helpful. I do have a couple of bonus tips. Well, one really, but I had kind of already mentioned the other ones. Okay, so one bonus tip that I have for this series it's not my tip. It's from an artist that I follow. Her name is Azania Noah. She's a beautiful artist. She lives in Switzerland, but she is from New York. But she has her own show as well. So if you're interested, you can look her up. Azania Noah, Azania Noah. But one tip that and I asked her if I could share this tip, so she's, I'm not stealing anything. I'm not plagiarizing. But Azania said that one thing that you should do as a performer is record yourself. And I thought that was a really good tip, because of all these things that we talked about over these weeks. I thought that was a really good way to end everything in conclusion, because when you record yourself, you get to just to see what you need to work on. You get to see what works, what doesn't work, and how the audience sees you. Because, when you're performing up there, you don't see yourself. But when you look at your recording, you say, oh, okay, I see I have a habit of doing this, or I need to change that. So it's always a good thing. I thought that was an excellent tip, and I wanted to highlight that in the recap show. So that was from Azania Noah, for you to record your performances. And I thought that was a good tip. But I just wanted to end talking about the euphoria of performing. Now, I mentioned it a little bit in terms of engaging your audience, but I just wanted to just say that one of the things that's really addictive for artists and performers is that feeling that you get when you're on stage and you're sharing your gift, and the world, the audience is loving you back, and it's one of the best feelings in the world, and it's why we keep going back to it, and it's why we're doing it, because we are touching the world. So that is the conclusion of performing in front of an audience. I hope that you found these tips helpful. I hope that please let me know. Please, if this is helpful for you, please let me know. because I'm working on getting some testimonials. I have a few people who said they would love to give me some testimonials, and I want to know that this is helping you. So please let me know. You can contact me on Facebook. My official singing tips contact is through Instagram at BCM Sings. That is and that bio, if you click on the bio in Instagram, the BCM Sings, it leads right to the blog. But I just want to know if there's anyone out there that finds this helpful, because this is helping me. It helps me to help you, believe it or not. It really does. And the feedback that I've been getting has been very positive, and I appreciate everyone for tuning in and supporting Singing Tips. I'm so happy that I am making a difference, and I want to know. So please let me know. I'm also available for bookings, so if you have an event and you need music, please let me know. Reach out to me. I have a duo. I have a trio called the Benita Charles Trio, or full band, Benita Charles and Friends, full band. So whatever your needs are, we can talk about it. So that's it for me. Oh, thank you so much. Oh, hi. I see I have my cousin join. Hello there, Tamika. How are you? And we're just doing a recap show of all the tips in terms of performing in front of an audience. So all of the tips that we talked about for the last 10 weeks have all been about singing in front of people. And that's what it's all about. I mean, from the first section was your talent. We were developing our talent. Then from there, we're singing in front of an audience. So all of these tips was all about that. I hope you guys have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. And before I go, I would like to sing something for you. This is from Moments in Love. Should have had it ready, sorry. Hold me, love me, never let me go. Kiss me, touch me, feelings overflow. Oh, the precious love you give to me. Oh, I never want your love to leave. Your love thrills me. It's been ecstasy. Hold me, love me, and never let me go. Don't let go. I'm so into you. You're a special part of me. Always love me. We make love so tenderly. Oh, the precious love you give to me. Oh, I never want your love to leave. Hold me, love me. You're my everything. And never let me go. No, no, don't let go. Don't let go. Thank you, everyone. I hope you have a wonderful weekend, and I hope that you have enjoyed these singing tips. And this is the recap show that closes out performing in front of a live audience. So you can reach me at Instagram at BCM Sings, of course on Facebook. I'm on all of the social media. But I hope that you have enjoyed it. And thank you guys for the love. I really appreciate it. Have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. And I'll see you next week. We're going to be talking about recording. So take care and thanks for your support.